Good morning, everybody, and welcome. We'll get started since you are all here on time. We'll probably have a few people walking in. We still have people registering. So to get us off started on the right foot, sit down. I'd like to invite Ray Pasquale from the Clinton Community College. He's the president of the college, and he would like to welcome us to the campus today. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, the easy part is just to say good morning and welcome to all of you. And we're very pleased to have a small business development center here on our campus. It's a real partnership when you can take community college and partner with business and work together to really, and there's some synergies there we haven't even begun to explore. But the idea is seminars like this and others, we can work together. We do a lot of training. And, you never know what's going to come from all of that. But the idea is we're very proud to have them on our campus. We're very proud to have you here and welcome. So there's no such thing as anything free. So as president of this college, I got to give you a little bit of insight to our college and just tell you who we are. We're part of the SUNY system, part of 30 community colleges, and you probably know that. Our campus is probably, without doubt, one of the prettiest campuses you'll ever see. If you have not seen, if you go up to the main building, which is the old hotel, how many of you have been in the old hotel? Probably many of you, right? All right, so I can talk pretty good, then you know what it is. For the 1800s, in that hotel is seeing Presidents Taft, McKinley, both Roosevelts, roam the hallways as their summer White House, and Babe Ruth actually hung out there for a while too. We won't even begin to talk about what he might have done, but because he had quite the reputation. But this college has been known for its absolute beauty where it is, and we're very proud of the fact that we sit here on Lake Champlain and provide education to close to 3,000 students a year. And then we just built a new manufacturing center, $13 million given to us by the state of New York, which is providing training to companies like Nova Bus. Nova Bus moved their training bus down here from Quebec, and we've been doing training for them. Bombardier, which over this year we trained over 300 employees for entry-level skills. Companies like Moldright, Vaporstone Rail, Champlain Foods. So we're doing lots of training. The building's been open about a year, and we've had close to 2,000 employees from those businesses go through training. In addition to that, we've got about 90 programs that we offer a variety of certificates and degrees. You can go anywhere you want from here. We've got partnerships with Clarkson, to all of our state universities and colleges. So as they say, we're all accredited, part of Middle States, and the community college is your entry level. It's inexpensive, less than $6,000 a year to go to college. And if any of you have children in college, you know $6,000 is probably what the books and rent cost in terms of an apartment. But beyond that, we're a great bargain. So our community college is here for just that. If you think about community colleges, it's a simple term. They really are part of the community. And the way they're part of the community is by doing events like this, bringing people together for all the right reasons. Today's title, What's Your Business Worth? And you have an outstanding person to lead you today, Peter. And welcome. It's really great to have you here. And the idea behind this is, what is your business worth? And we are a business. I remind people often that as a college, it has to be run as a business. And if it isn't, things begin to go awry. So we manage about $13 million. That's our budget. And 300 plus employees. 4,000 or 5,000 customers a year. And so when you add all that up, we think about what value are we giving back? We have to run this just like a business. And so many of the things you're going to hear today is truly, what is your business worth? And that goes well beyond the facilities and the materials, but what is it worth in the future? So you're going to get an opportunity to really listen to an expert guide you through that and what it means. But on behalf of the community college, we really are thrilled to have you here. And hopefully you'll enjoy your day. I know you will with Peter, no doubt. You told me to say that, right? Absolutely. And you're going to have, hopefully learn some new things. But any questions about our community college? Any questions about anything you want to ask me? I don't want to be too long. Mainly, it was just to say, welcome. We're glad you're here. Enjoy the day. We're very grateful. We're partners with our Small Business Development Center. We're actually going to be moving SciTech, which is another agency, onto our campus as well. We're beginning to do partnerships in ways that most people don't. I mean, we're going to have little leaguers playing baseball up here all summer. Opening the doors of the campus, we have Girl Scouts using this facility all the time now. The idea is community college, making sure that we help our students achieve their dreams, and most importantly, change their lives for a better life through education. So it's a pleasure to welcome you. Thank you for being here. And let me introduce your next speaker, Sue Madden. Sue is from the Chamber. I'm very proud to be a board member of the Chamber. Work very closely with Sue. We do lots of grants together, but she is the president of the
Vice President for Economic Development.
That's a great title.
Jerry's the big boss.
But anyways, please welcome Sue Madden from the Chamber. Have a great day, and it's a real pleasure to have you here on our campus.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here today. We so appreciate your being here today, and it's a pleasure to be working with SBDC, Clinton Community College, and ANCA for this program. We are small business. We, the Chamber, are small business. We, the community, are small business. And so it's very important for us to be able to transfer these small businesses that are heart of the community to that next generation, as my generation starts to leave the business world. These businesses, just to give you an example, I had some numbers run yesterday about the makeup of our county as far as the businesses are concerned. Total number of businesses in Clinton County. Now this would be having one employer or more, because our numbers come from the Department of Labor, so they don't count sole proprietor. So this is actually a lower number than is what we would think of as being small businesses. But the total number of businesses is 1,868. Of those, having fewer than 20 employees, 1,260. The Chamber of Commerce is also small business. We hear about the Bombardiers and the Wabtechs and the Moldrights and they are very important as well. They are a big driver of our community. They employ a lot of people. They bring new money into our region, which then businesses, the small businesses, then benefit from. But in numbers, small businesses are far greater as percentage. And of the Chamber membership, 65% have 10 employees or fewer. So we exist because of small businesses, and that's who we chiefly serve, is small businesses. So we try to offer things like this that can be, we're so pleased to be able to co-sponsor this, and so glad that you could be here today to help us, that will help small businesses. There are many things that impact you. We're offering pool training for the hotels that's there in the area. And that's something that you don't really think about, but somebody's got to train those. We don't do the kind of thing like community college does. We don't offer, longer programs. Most of our things are shorter kinds of training. You may have heard about the new sexual harassment prevention laws. And so every employer, even those who have one employee, has to train all of their employees by October 10th of this year on sexual prevention. And there are defined things you must say, there are policies you must have. So we've been running two kinds of trainings to help people comply. There's a lot of question about this. Those for the employer, how do I comply? And those for the employees, so that if you don't have enough people to bring in someone like Peter, who is a specialist, you're not a specialist in that, but someone who is a specialist in sexual harassment prevention into your business, you can just send them to the chamber. The other things that we do is work a lot with other organizations. We'll be working again with the Small Business Development Center on June 6th at the Expo. So this is about valuing your business, maybe selling your business. That one will be about buying a business or starting a business, the other end of the spectrum, and that'll be on June 6th. So it's just a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for coming. And I'm sure that we'll enjoy it. And Angela, are you next? I am next. Angela Smith, who is director of the Small Business Development Center here at the college.
Thank you, everybody. I'm not good like these guys. I don't go off the cuff too much. I have my notes if you don't mind. But good morning and welcome to Clinton Community College, this beautiful campus. Hopefully everybody found the refreshments and the gorgeous view, because that's part of the perk of being in this building. Thank you also to Ray and Sue for welcoming everybody here and being here this morning. My name is Angela Smith. I'm the Assistant Director with the SUNY Canton SBDC at Clinton Community College. So recently we joined forces with Canton SBDC. So we have our head office is located in Canton, and we are now a satellite office of SUNY Canton. But we're glad to be able to stay here in the region and serve the 6 counties like we always had. The SBDC's been here since 1984, so we have staying power, and hopefully we are here to serve for many more years. So looking around the room this morning, of course, I see a lot of smart people. And the reason why I say this is that nationally, fewer than 15% of business owners have an exit plan in place. And of that number, almost 80% intend to sell their business to fund their retirement. So in my book, you are here today. That makes you some of the smartest business owners around. You're part of that elite 15% who are at least thinking about implementing a plan if you don't have one already. So the wave of baby boomers, right, that are retiring, it's an estimated 10,000 people a month that are retiring, will have and are having a significant impact on the US economy. The statistics show that about 12 million businesses are going to transfer ownership over the next 10 to 15 years. In our greater region served by ANCA, which is about 14 counties, the number's estimated to be somewhere between 10 to 16,000 businesses. In our rural regions, it can be a little more challenging to buy or to sell a business because finding suitable buyers or successors can be a little more challenging, right? How do you draw people to rural areas? There's not as many people to choose from. Sometimes economic regions, people don't have quite as much money to put down or as much wealth. So these are sometimes barriers to being able to transition a business. The good news is ANCA did a large study which was released, I believe, early this year, right? Okay, good. And this has led, so they identified the risk of losing businesses as a priority to work on for the region, but it also led to the creation of a new program and center called the Center for Businesses in Transition. And Danny here from ANCA is going to talk to us a little bit later about some of the services, matchmaking available to help people connect with buyers and sellers. So there's some pretty interesting services that are available through their program. But bottom line, whether it's the Chamber, the Clinton Community College, the SBDC, the lenders, we are all here because we want to limit the loss of businesses in our region. We want to make sure that you can sell your businesses for top dollar as you go into retirement, right? You spend a whole lifetime building wealth in your business. Let's help you get as much as you can out of it. But also we want to see your business continue. And the reason for doing these types of workshops is to provide you some tidbits of information, but also to let you know there's resources here for you. Whether it's the SBDC, your lender, ANCA, there's actually a lot of free resources available if you do want to reach out and talk to someone and maybe see how we might be able to be of assistance. So again, we're in great company this morning. Do I see? So Mark Dame is here. Barbara and Tony, I think, are still out there in case someone walks in. So we have 4 full-time SBDC staff members here on campus. And if you've ever organized an event like this morning, you know that it takes time and resources to reach you business owners. You're not easy to reach. I have to really pound the pavement with social media marketing, emails, and then I reach out to colleagues like Anka, and they reach out into their communities to make sure people know about it. So I'm hoping that also today, when you leave, you're going to be ambassadors for your communities to spread the word about services available to other business owners that maybe are not aware that there is assistance out there for them. So events like this are only possible because of co-sponsors, right? So bringing in Peter, you know, airfare, hotels, SBDC budgets are very limited. So a big thank you to Anka and Danny and her group. A big thank you to John Van Axen. Where are you, John? There he is. Okay. From Glens Falls National Bank for your financial contribution. Without you, it would not be possible. And thank you to the Chamber and to Carol at Essex County IDA for helping to promote the event. Because again, reaching business owners is not easy, so we use all of our partner channels. And thank you to Peter, who's our guest speaker this morning. He flew in, arrived at 1 in the morning, Monday night, due to flight delays from LaGuardia. So Tuesday was a little bit of a rough day. He didn't have too much sleep, and he's flying in from Arizona, so, you know, the time change. So he's here until Friday morning with us. He's been working on doing some training with SBDC staff here so we can beef up some of our tools to help specifically with valuation of businesses. We do very basic rule of thumb valuation, but it's a way to start the conversation about what a business is worth. And Peter is here pro bono. He is donating his time and expertise. And Peter had a wonderful way of describing what pro bono is, where the fool does not get paid. So thank you, Peter, for donating your time. We do appreciate it. I met Peter in 2014 at New York SBDC annual training. So every year, the entire SBDC group gets together for ongoing training, and we meet people like Peter that are experts in their fields. And I reached out to him because I thought he'd be a really good teacher, because he's also been an SBDC advisor. So he knows how to work with small business, how to educate. And on the flip side, he's also been a successful entrepreneur, owning up to 6 restaurants all at one time. You know, many commercial properties that he turned around and made more profitable. And of course, consulting services, helping people evaluate and buy and sell their business. So again, thank you for, you know, helping small business owners. I know it's a labor of love for you, and he's now retired. So once in a while, he comes out of retirement for special events like this. So we're extremely privileged to have you here today. And without any further ado, this is your show, so take it away.
Thank you. Well, I'm using a mic today. If you can't hear me, tell me and I'll turn it up until the people in front say too loud. So this says valuation. A couple people have mentioned valuation. It's about the bigger picture of exit strategy. A lot of local economic development people are concerned that the boomers of my generation who've been successful in business are not going to keep going forever. Nobody lives forever. And what happens to the local economy when those businesses transition? They're going to miss you, but you'll probably still be around or at least visit. If the business goes away, that will be more sorely missed. Well, maybe you will be, but so this is about ideas, thinking about how you can transition your business rather than close it. And that's a valid exit strategy is anything you want. It's all your preference. There's no wrong answer to how you're going to exit your business. If you want to just lock the door, have an auction, and move to someplace warm, that's valid. But I'm going to talk about the alternative and what it takes to sell a business. You folks have been selling your goods and services for a long time successfully, but this is your first time probably selling a business. I've done it for myself and my clients and my employers hundreds of times. And at some time along that way, I discovered there was a common thread, commonality, common mistakes to avoid. And up from the $35,000 transaction for a 3-stool or 3-chair hair salon to a multi-billion-dollar merger of 2 publicly held companies. There's a great deal of commonality. And when I discovered that, I credentialed myself as an expert. So here I am. So the first step is, what is the business worth? That you can't do anything unless you know what you're working with. And what it's worth to you is hard emotion, but what it's worth on the market, it's an investment. Nobody buys a business for fun. Well, those that do find out how much fun it is pretty quickly, but they buy it. Your buyer is going to be looking at an investment, and the value of an investment is a capitalization of the return on that investment. With stocks, we call it the price earnings ratio. With commercial property, we call it the cap rate. With a savings account, we call it the rate of return. But the value of any of these is simply the capitalization of the rate of return that is expected. And the formula, very simple. The capitalization is the rate of return. The value is the capitalization multiple times the return. And I'll show you several ways to measure return. Plus growth, which don't get too obsessed about that. I'll talk to you about how growth may factor into the value of your business. Any business debt that goes with it, and any cash or equivalents that go with it. If you sell your business, you may have the buyer assume the debt. That's going to reduce the value of that business. You may leave money. You probably should leave money so that they can operate the next day with cash in the drawer, be able to buy the stuff that you've already ordered, be able to pay the employees on Thursday. So very commonly, you leave some cash in the business. That adds to the value, dollar for dollar. The value of your business is irrelevant of the cost or value of the assets, with the possible exception of real estate. I once had a client who had a gymnasium, a big fitness center, and he was going to bring in a partner. Why do you bring in a partner? You know, you need the money. Nobody wants a partner. They need a partner. So he came to me and he said, I need to know the value of the business. So I know what my partner's, how to charge my partner for 20% of the equity. So I came up with a value of between $80 and $85,000. And he said, I just put this thing together. The equipment cost me $100,000. I said, well, if you can sell the equipment for $100,000, that's your way. Do that. Because the equipment as it's deployed is only generating a return that justifies an $80,000 valuation. So you don't get your cake and eat it too. You can't deploy the assets in a business and say the business is worth this, and say, and it's got these assets. That's double counting. As I said, real estate may be an exception, may. So what's that big C, the capitalization rate? It's a measure of the stability, the likelihood of continued expectation of the historical return. And it's industry specific. A service business usually has a lower capitalization multiple, sometimes 2 or 3, than a product business, which may be 5 or 6. The reason is, in a service business, the production assets go home every night and don't have to show up the next day. If you've been an employer, you've certainly experienced that. So a business with unique assets, with a unique product, the capitalization rate is higher. For example, a painting contractor, probably 1.5 to 2 times annual return, because the painters can work anywhere. A marina out here with docks and travel lift and a pool, maybe 10 times, because that's a unique property. It's hard to duplicate that. It's a lot easier to become a painter than a marine operator. The capitalization rate assumes a few things: that the business can be transitioned to new ownership, ease of succession. And if you own a business, it's part of you. You identify with that business, and people identify you as that business. So it's hard to let go. The first lesson, if you're going to formulate an exit strategy, is you're going to have to get the mindset that you're going to have to let go. You're going to have to turn somebody else into an operator. You have your own systems and rules that somebody has to learn. You have a key to success that even your close employees probably don't see. They think that they're in charge. They think that they're doing everything. You know that's not true. What I use is this book. It has rules of thumb valuations for every type of business, every type of franchise. Yesterday, after the presentation, we met one-on-one with 5 business owners, and we went through the valuation process with them and talked about their specific issues with exit strategy, and everyone walked away saying, "Wow, I never thought of that." That's okay. I've done it before. And I'd be glad to meet with any one of you afterwards. Have we signed up yet?
We have 1 o'clock and 1:30, but if anybody would like to meet with Peter, we have a 2 o'clock and a 2:30 session still available. So you'll sit in with Peter and an SBDC advisor one-on-one. So the goal is we'll continue working through the SBDC. And Peter has generously offered that if you have any questions, an SBDC advisor can reach out to him for clarification. So he will stay on, pro bono for SBDC for a little while.
Well, I'll do that as long as I can, because I love the program. I love what they do. It's just amazing what a resource the SBDC advisors was, and I didn't realize that till I was one, and I had to quickly rise to the occasion. They see a lot of different situations, and they have resources to help no matter what. And you can't hire me, but you can get me through these guys.
And the book that Peter was showing, the SBDC, New York State wide, we have 4 full-time librarians that work in Albany, and that's all they do for us is research, demographic data, and they pay for publications to get the multipliers. So if we're working on a specific business, we can send a request to our research network, and they will send us those industry multipliers to share with you. So that's another benefit. Don't want to work with them, want to get a research.
Right, as I said, these rules of thumb, and okay, this valuation method is not going to hold up in court, but neither will an expert. It will just take the defense attorney a little bit longer to break down that 60-page analysis with exhibits than it will my rule of thumb. My rule of thumb, these are based on actual transactions, but your business is going to sell in a unique transaction. It may vary, but these valuations will be a great starting point, especially to formulate your exit strategy. You're going to know what you have to work with. If you decide you want to market it, it's a great way to arrive at an asking price that's reasonable. If you ask too much, your phone won't ring. If you ask too little, you're cheating yourself. So let's see what has happened. If you want to price it at the high end of the range at first, great. But if you go much higher than that, any buyer with sophistication enough to run your business is not going to be calling you. These things assume that you have a market that's transferable. My market is not. I can't sell my business because it's me. It would take me a lifetime to train somebody on all the mistakes I've made and learned the hard way, on all the experiences I've had. And one of the reasons, by the way, why I work free for the SBDC is I get more experiences. I get your story, your unique story. And I learn as much as I teach. So your market has to be transferable. Remember I said you have to step aside from the business? How would you keep your customers if you weren't there? And we'll talk about techniques. It assumes that there's not a blockbuster competition on the horizon, that your market, that your competition situation is stable, that what you've done over the years to address the competition is still going to work after you're gone. And town hall. And in dealing with town hall, the chamber, your other resources, your economic development people are a great way to approach. Is your business in compliance? If you are a non-conforming use, can it be grandfathered to a new owner? Or do you have to go through a hearing with the rank amateurs on the Zoning Board of Appeals? It's too bad. The professional planners in town know what they're doing, but the decisions are made by volunteers. Very well-meaning, but not always certainty when you try it. There's no highway that's going to be moved away from you or on top of you. Another thing is the environmental. I talked with a couple people yesterday who have environmental issues. Some are prior use. If there was a environmentally impactful use, such as a dry cleaner, a print shop, automotive use, gas station, your business, even if you didn't do it, if somebody else did it before you, the liability goes to the owner. So you may have to address that before you try to market your business. Now in the formula back there, it said plus growth. Don't even think about it unless you really have a positive fact that supports your business is going to grow after you're gone, because it's more likely to contract. Because most buyers think that they know what they're doing. And unless they've been in your industry, they don't. They're going to try, and they're going to change things. And your business, your customer base was built on consistency. They came back for that pot pie because they liked it. The new guy may make a better pot pie, but he's going to disappoint the customers. He's not going to meet their expectations. So a new owner may dream of growth, but it isn't there. But if you have a fact that you've got a new product, a new market, a new method, a way to cut out some major cost, that can be factored in, but not speculation. A buyer who is experienced in your business, there may be growth from synergy. He may be able to drop duplicate overhead. He may be able to add your market. By the way, the value of your business, the goodwill, is all the customers. That's all it is. And if you think about how you're going to sell your business, sometimes there's your real estate, there's your equipment, there's your business. But think about your customers. That's where the value is. Can you sell your book of business to a competitor? Now, some businesses, especially technology startups, may have a huge value and no profit. It's all anticipated growth. They have a new app that's got 30 million users. They haven't made any money yet, but their value is pretty high and it's all growth. And the investors call these unicorns. You're not going to see one. I doubt that you have one. So I told you that assets, the value of assets can't be added to the value of the business. It's double counting. But your assets have to be in good shape. Serviceable equipment, production balance, state of the art, production balance. If you have a print shop and you have 2 presses and 5 binders, and that 2 presses can only keep 3 binders working, you have a production imbalance. You can think about how you can address that. Maybe you can sell the surplus equipment separately, probably best before you offer the business. Your inventory has to be merchantable. If you've got damaged or obsolete inventory, your accountant should have nagged you to write it off according to generally accepted accounting principles, and not kept it on the books. You can keep it on the shelves if you have lots of shelves, but you want to clean up your balance sheet before you offer a business for sale. I'll get more into that in preparing your business for sale after the break. If you've got a problem in your business, if you're carrying obsolete inventory on the books, if you're paying your brother-in-law a salary and he doesn't even show up, all these things are going to come out sooner or later. You have to clean up your act before you market the business. And there's two ways we can work with you. The SBDC can restate your financial statements without all that stuff, or you can clear it up, and 3 years later, you have 3 years of accurate information that shows how really profitable your business is. I met somebody yesterday who was so paranoid about paying income tax that she reinvested all of her profit back into the business so it didn't show as profit. She didn't have to pay tax. I said, pay your tax. For every dollar you get, you're going to pay back a quarter, and it's going to make the business worth a fortune. So her time frame was about 3 years, and so it worked out. And speaking of time frame, I meet more people who are going to sell their business in a couple of years, and they tell me that for 5 or 6 years. So be realistic. I met somebody yesterday whose time frame was now. I'm going to do this seasonal business one more season, and I've had it. He finally had the birthday that shook him, and he said, I got to move on and do all the things I've been promising myself all these years. And he was just ready to push down the plunger and blow it all up. And we said, talking with him, he had a buyer. He was going to work one more season anyway. I said, why don't you get strategic and walk away with something in your pocket? And he was happy he met me. There's a lot of emotion involved in this, and we understand that. This is part of you. This is like donating a kidney. So this is mostly are there any buyers here? Okay, good. Because I'm gonna tell you some things that you need to know, but also you sellers need to be aware that the buyers know this, or sophisticated buyer. The right financial data. The banks are always asking you for a copy of your tax returns, but they're also asking you for your internal statements, because tax returns are prepared strictly to minimize tax. Your internal statements are what you use, the information you use to make business decisions. Whether your rent's too high, whether your inventory turns are too low, that shows up in your statements, not on the tax returns. But they must reconcile. You know how the accrual effect can reduce your tax liability by a lot, but cash basis is what you live on. So let me just say, it's time to clean up that too. If you're doing things specifically to save tax that aren't quite reconcilable to your internal books, it's time to wean yourself off of that. Because your buyer is going to look down through those books and try and reconcile it. They're going to look for a pattern of consistency over the 3 years of information you provide them. Even the banks, when you apply for a loan, they want 3 years of financials. Why? Ancient history really doesn't indicate what's going on. Your buyer may ask to contact your accountant and find out what the scope of the audit is. Does he just take your QuickBooks and prepare the statements, or does he verify the claimed assets, accounts receivable, accounts payable? And there's plenty of historical and industry statistics. Matter of fact, in every industry, this book has typical cost of goods sold, rent, other overhead for that particular industry, because there's a formula. Every industry has its keys to success and you've found yours. You've got your cost of goods sold right. You've got your labor right. You've got your rent affordable. But the book will have resources for buyers to see, did you do it reasonably, or is this looking like there's something beneath the surface? Now, I said the value of the business is a capitalization rate times the return. There are different ways to measure return, and this book provides you different capitalization rates for them. There's profit, earnings before interest and taxes, earnings before interest, taxes, dividends, and amortization. And the big one for a small business, SDE, seller's disposable income. That is the seller's entire compensation package provided by the business. That's the return the buyer is going to assume. That's what he's going to get. So that's the best measure of what that business is worth. That includes your salary, your profit, your benefits, and your privileges. You know what I mean. Some of those have to go now because they can't be shown. The toting privileges, the company car you really don't need in the company, the company employees that mow your lawn and paint your house. You know what I mean. I've been there. So it's one thing for the SBDC to sit down with you and tabulate those to show a buyer what's going on. And it's another thing if they don't happen and it shows on the bottom line. Which do you think is more credible to a buyer? And sometimes it's unreasonable, you know. Sometimes it's very reasonable, perfectly legal, but it's hard to deal with. Like the fellow I met recently, whose dad lives in an apartment above the business, free of rent. If we're going to sell that business, what are we going to do with dad? If dad stays, somebody's got to pay rent. You see how it gets complicated. And we all have these transactions. We all do things that really mean well, may not be illegal. So sellers can easily overstate these perks and try and convince a buyer this is part of your return. If it shows on the bottom line, it's so much easier. Now, for it to be SDE, part of your compensation package, it has to be completely unnecessary for the business. It's just part of you're just diverting profits into your pocket in a way other than paycheck or a draw. If a painter has a truck paid for by the business, that's probably needed by the business. That's not SDE. He uses that to get to jobs, go pick up materials. If a restaurant owner owns one restaurant and has a company car, that's not necessary for the business. He's using it to commute to work. I hope he's taking a taxable benefit so it doesn't catch up with him. But that's part of SDE. SDE components must be quantifiable in dollars. There's you may get a lot of prestige in your business, but that doesn't increase its value. So it's only a trade-off, profit versus compensation. And if it's not really hunky-dory with the tax man, that's a completely different thing. If you're getting away with it, good for you, but it's time to make it legit. I gave you this example already. So you could get compensation from anywhere. Your totem privileges, what employees do for you that's not for the business, rental property. So think about what you're doing and how you want to address it. And let me tell you something really cool. these guys can't turn you in. According to the Code of Federal Regulations, if you say, I'm doing this, they'll help you get in compliance. They'll tell you what the consequences are, then they can't turn you in. All right? They can't even report it to their boss. Complete confidentiality. That's why if you work with me, work through them, because I have to legally disclose tax fraud. They don't. Now, if she goes to your office, opens a refrigerator for soda, and there's a severed human foot in there, she's going to have to tell somebody. But as far as business stuff, you couldn't ask for a better resource. So here's one way to do it that these guys could help you do. We take what's on the books, adjust it for the SDE, the owner's total privileges. We have to add back the owner's son's salary because he's working off the books. I'd like to see that happen. And the overhead, because the business is paying the owner's home maintenance. I've seen it all. You know, the guy who tells his insurance agent he wants to pay more for his business insurance, but he wants his homeowners an auto for free. It's done. So this is one way to do it. We can put it back in for you and show a buyer what's going on, or you can cut the monkey business now, and in 3 years you'll have 3 beautiful years of accurate sales that you can back up every way. Let's do a determination of sales based on EBITDA, because SDE is anything you want it to be. So I go for the company's books, and here's what I've got to work with. And then we take the 3 components, interest, depreciation, and taxes, and add them back to the net profit. And we get an EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, dividends, and amortization, of $220,181. This is the fancy way we say cash flow. That's all it is. But if I said cash flow to a banker instead of EBITDA, they say, what century were you born in? Yeah. No, this is just income taxes. Let's say in this example, the labor includes the labor taxes. Right. State and local taxes would be property tax, license fees, and all the other things that the state charges you for all the services you get. No, because that's a cost of doing business. The freight on your labor, the FICA, the Social Security, and so forth, the workers' comp, you can't back that out. It's just income tax, because that's part of cash flow. So we go to the book, and this is what a table in the book would look like for a full-service restaurant: 2 to 3 times EBITDA, or we could do 1.5 to 2 times SDE plus inventory. Inventory shows up here. What did I tell you? I said assets are irrelevant. In a business where inventory fluctuates a great deal, it does count. In a restaurant, your inventory could be thousands of dollars more the day after the truck gets there with the week's order than it was the day before. So typically in a restaurant, we do a physical inventory at the closing and add that in. If it's paid for. If it's still an account payable, it's a wash. It's not, that inventory is not an asset. The inventory in a restaurant is cash waiting to turn, is cash waiting to manifest itself. It's going to be turned into cash within a week. Inventory in a hardware store, pretty constant, week to week, and would be built into your return. And by the way, you can ask questions about what I just said anytime if you need clarifications. But if you have something off subject, wait till the end. I'm too old for this, and you'll derail my train of thought. So I'll be glad to clarify something. So we're going to go halfway between the high and the low of EBITDA, and this restaurant's worth $550,000. If I was listing it for sale with one of my clients, I'd list it at the high end, which would be around $700,000, knowing that I'll probably get the $500,000, but I'm asking a reasonable price, not high enough to preclude somebody who's savvy enough to run my restaurant, but you know, people love to horse trade, so whatever listing price you give them is your first offer is going to be lower. Here's another table for manufacturing. 100% of sales. Well, in this industry, sales must closely corroborate with return, and that happens in some manufacturing. It happens in franchises because they're cookie cutter, and the average of McDonald's makes return is X% of sales. We can use a sales-based figure. And in that franchise example, if they depart from that nominal percent expectation, the area management is going to come in and beat them up until they do. So here's very simple. 40% of annual sales plus inventory because it's a restaurant. So in a Burger King, this says to me they're probably netting about 12 to 14% on sales. So it's 3 times net. And this is what I mentioned about inventory. This is specific to a high turnover business like a restaurant. The stuff goes on the shelf, but it isn't booked until the invoice is put in the system. So there's a lag. And a buyer doing due diligence on a restaurant has to know that and figure that what's on the shelf is not an asset until it's paid for. So if there's a lag, we take the inventory less the accounts payable, which is practically a wash. And in order to find the accounts payable, we need to wait for the invoice. So a lot of times when doing due diligence on a restaurant, you get permission to go to their suppliers and ask them what they're owed and examine their payables procedure. If they're the rare restaurant that's paying in more than 7 days, they've got a huge accounts payable. An anomaly accounts payable reduces the value of the business. Remember the first formula, less the debt. So I told you real estate complicates the deal, and here we go. It also complicates the exit. I met someone recently who has a contracting business and several rental properties, single-family homes. The contracting business does all the maintenance on the homes. He wants to sell the contracting business, keep the homes, and collect the rent from Myrtle Beach. So now we've got to really figure out how he can not only get himself out of the business, he can get the business out of the rental properties. If he's going to be an absentee landlord, who's going to take the phone calls for the drippy faucets? Who's going to be on call to come and plow the snow or paint the house or drive by and make sure the tenants aren't trashing the place, running a human trafficking or a meth lab there? So this is stuff he did, but he didn't even think about doing it. He was there. He lived there. He lived in the neighborhood. So an example of how preparing your business for sale involves a lot of restructuring the environment for that business. If you want to keep your real estate or let it go as part of the business. If you have real estate, your business is operating on, you own the real estate, chances are you own the real estate separately from the business and are paying yourself rent because you're turning W-2 income and 1099 income into passive income, rent, which is not subject to Social Security, Medicare tax, workers' comp. So passive income is always a good thing. There are a lot of people who don't do that. They haven't bothered. It wasn't important. Now that you're selling it, you have to rethink that, because you may want to sell the real estate separate from the business, even to the same buyer. And I'll tell you why. If you pay yourself rent, you can pay yourself triple net so that the business still pays all the taxes, insurance, and maintenance on the property. That chunk of change goes to the real estate. Real estate multiples are higher than business. I think in Southeastern Connecticut, where I used to live, we worked on a 10 cap. The real estate is worth 10 times its net income. The business, the retail, probably 5. So we transfer income to the real estate, we get a higher multiple, the aggregate is worth more. Something to think about if you're thinking about exit strategy, because it really has to be done a little bit before, hopefully 3 years before, so that you can show the buyer the 3 years of financial statements, and he can take the 3 years financial statements to the banker to get the financing. And another nice thing about real estate is it's more bankable. If you have a buyer who doesn't have enough to pay you cash for your business and real estate, he can take the real estate portion, go to the bank and borrow up to 90% on an SBA 504 loan, which is a marvelous instrument. The fees to take the loan out are more than a normal mortgage, but the benefit is the 90% versus 80% financing. The benefit is that the SBA portion, which is half the loan, is a 20-year loan, and the bank will only give you a 10-year amortization, 20-year amortization with a 10-year balloon. So you have to refinance in 10 years on the bank portion. SBA 504. This guy knows about it. He'll be glad to help you with it. You know, all the bankers, this is the SBA does a great thing for banks, because there are only so many deals that are bankable, maybe 5%, because the person has the collateral, the capacity, the credit. And then there's another 5 or 8% of deals that are only bankable with enhanced lending. Enhanced means somebody co-signs the loan, somebody who does have the capacity, the collateral, and the character. And I always say a co-signer is no more than a fool with a pen, because he's on the hook, but he has nothing, you know, he may have no recourse. So we have a co-signer ready for you, and that's the SBA. That's what they do. There's no such thing as an SBA loan. The SBA doesn't lend money. They guarantee bank loans. So there's always a little higher fee for an SBA guarantee. But if you're not bankable yourself, if you don't have a load of money in that bank to give them as collateral, it helps more deals than not. So real estate may complicate things, but it also is a resource to simplify things if you can carve it out. Let's say you can't carve it out. The business and the real estate are inseparable. The business can't relocate. The real estate, then you have to look at it as a package and say, is this the highest best use for my real estate? And very common, we were in Saranac Lake yesterday, real resort area. And as any tourist area has, real estate has shifted. Properties that were rural and suburban are now prime retail tourist real estate. So some of the businesses there, the guy is better off closing the business or trying to get a buyer who could take the business somewhere else, maybe home, and selling the real estate. The business is, the package is worth more with the business dead. So I told you about why you pay yourself rent. And if you spin the real estate off, talk to your accountant who knows you. And knowing you is important. Nobody can help you unless they know you. There's no answer that fits all because it's your life. That's more important than your business. The structure of the entity that holds the real estate, you can own it personally, you can own it through an LLC. Corporation, probably not. It's a fairly unwieldy thing just to be a real estate holding because you have to do annual meetings, a stock book, a minute book, and do filings with the Secretary of the State. LLC is like corporate light. There's none of that. You still do a filing, but it's just your name and address. So there are some special cases. I look out over your faces and I say, I wonder if it applies to any of them. It may not, but you should know about it. One is control. Control of a business is worth something in and of itself. Typically, when a large publicly traded business is acquired, the acquiring party buys up to 10% of the stock on the open market and then makes a tender offer for the rest at about 15 to 20% over the closing price of the stock. These offers are always announced after the market closes. Why is that? Because they're paying a control premium. They're not buying a fractional interest in the company anymore. They're buying a controlling interest, and that's worth money. And a lot of the tender offers will say, if we don't get 51%, we withdraw the offer. Very expensive little exercise to do and not complete. But the rules of thumb assume that we're talking about 100% control. If you have partners with a minority interest, you don't have 100% control. 51% is control, but if there's a minority interest somewhere, there are laws that protect them. Although they have no say in it, they are protected. So it does drop the value a little bit. A buyer will be less likely to buy 60% of your business than 100%. The other thing is marketability. This is the time to think about contractual restrictions on selling your business. If you have a loan, you almost definitely have one. If you have a partner, you may have a buy-sell agreement. If you have a lease, you may have one. A lot of leases commonly say that if there's a transfer of ownership, the landlord can invalidate the lease or can vet the new lessee and accept or reject the deal. You should know about that before you start trying to sell your business. Trapped-in capital gains, you don't know if you have them, but your accountant could tell you. Trapped-in capital gains means you have an asset in your business that's appreciated in value, and if it's ever sold, parceled out from the business and sold, there'll be a capital gains tax due. It doesn't happen except on an entity sale, which I'll get into in the next segment. But if you have one, you need to know about it and maybe mitigate it. Ask your accountant. He'll probably smile and say, "What, are you kidding me? You don't have that." Key persons. If you have a rainmaker in your organization, the salesman that has the gift of gab that brings in all the sales, the person who has the technique to repair the furniture that nobody else does. This is the time to figure out not only how you would get out of that business, but how that business would survive without this person, or how you would retain that person. Now, they made slavery illegal, so it's employment at will. Your employees can leave anytime they want. You can't stop them, but you can slow them down by getting a non-compete and a non-disclosure agreement with them. You need to get those from a lawyer because to be enforceable, they have to be reasonable. And the standards of reasonability are such that the courts don't want to enforce anything that unreasonably impairs a person's ability to make a living. So you have to have sound reason to say, that guy can't compete with me. Hi.
Back just one area. Trapped-in capital gains. If you've completely written off depreciation on a piece of equipment, it still has a fair amount of value. is that transferable in the?
This would only apply if you would have trapped in capital gains if that piece of equipment wasn't necessary for the business and the buyer would contemplate selling it. Normally that over depreciated asset, we'll talk about price allocation later, but anything you would allocate the purchase price of your business to land, buildings, equipment, goodwill, on and on. What's allocated to that equipment, if it's above your book value, you're going to pay regular income tax, your regular income rate as a recapture of depreciation. Whereas goodwill is always a long-term capital gain. We'll talk about that in the next segment, because one thing you need to know is how to allocate the purchase price, and the buyers and the sellers' goals in this can be in conflict. You may have a competitive advantage that adds value to your business. This is not common, but I've seen it. You may have intellectual property. Now, if the intellectual property is engaged in the business, the value of that is built into the return already. So you can't double count it as an asset. But if there's a possibility of licensing the intellectual property in addition to what you're getting through the business, that adds value. You can demonstrate that the return on investment of buying my business is not just what I'm getting, but I have begun to license this technology or this technique or this design, and here's how I propose to do it. You know, that speaks to the big G, the big growth, that you have growth potential that is factual. And these are rare factors, but you need to be aware of them in case they apply. Now, in valuing a business, there are always alternatives. That professional, I think I'm a professional, but the guys that do exhibits for courts produce a 70-page valuation report with exhibits and pictures and documentation on where they got all the figures. They may show a valuation based on income and another one such as comparable sales, what other businesses have sold for. That works for houses. Houses are a house in a given neighborhood, school district with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and is decently maintained, is comparable to another house in the same category. And you can use those comparable sales to appraise the value of the house. That's what appraisers do. Doesn't work for business. Every one of your businesses is as unique as you are, as your fingerprint is. And so there's very little comparable sales data for Ike and Mike businesses. The book that I showed you is based on actual transactions nationwide to even that out. But even so, sometimes there's a local geography. Like in Alaska, the economy is completely different. I mean, a hamburger in Alaska is $25, but wages are $40 an hour. I once did a job for an accountant who audited all the Subways and all of the Walmarts in the country, and Alaska was like just in another planet. You know, the rent was 7 times what it was in upper New York State. So your return should reflect the unique strengths of your business. And if it doesn't, if there are things that you're not showing, and you're contemplating selling, this is the time to start letting it go to the bottom line so that your greatness shines through. I mean, you've been in business. Most businesses fail in their second year. Congratulations. The assessor has a value on your business, especially your equipment. That's useless for valuing your business, but it may corroborate what you're doing. And I've seen in estate planning where the owner gives his children a fractional interest in the business each year, keeping it under the maximum gift, which I think is $20,000, $21,000 a year now. So he would carve out that fraction, give the kids that portion of stock or ownership by letter. And I've seen that hold up in an estate, but it ends up being a tiny bit of the estate. And by the way, if you're thinking of passing on the business to your children, it's scary. But once they get control, your estate gets a huge discount if there's still any interest left in your estate. Probably 20% for control and 20% for marketability, because nobody can buy that business unless the kids go along with it. You need a tax lawyer to work that stuff out. Book value has worked in estate cases as well. Replacement value, maybe for rental property. If you're renting out a commercial property, what would it cost to replace it? Sometimes the banks look at that too, but nothing beats the income approach. Now, if all else fails, there are professional appraisers you can call. As I said, the SBDC can give you a valuation that's a good starting point for exit strategies, partnership exchange, but it's not going to hold up in a divorce. It's not going to hold up in a dispute. For that, you're going to have to pay one of these guys a lot more money, and her valuation, the opposing attorney's going to take 5 minutes to break it down. It'll take about an hour to break down the other one, because there's the only value of your business that's true is what it really sells for in the end. Everything else is speculation. So I'll take off-subject questions and answers on what I presented. We'll take a how many minute break?
We'll take a 15-minute break. So 10:30, we'll come back and we'll talk about selling and buying a business and tips on how to
prepare your business, what to expect in the buy-sell process. And you buyers and you sellers both need to follow this process. Every time I've worked on a deal and one step is left out, a year later, everybody's suffering. Okay.
There's some refreshments and a food gorgeous juice. So, if anybody would
let's say, and it's very hard to transfer the business to the children. You don't know what they're going to do. And you transfer a little and you watch, you transfer a little. But you maintain control because you don't want to take the risk. And you need the income from the business. That's why you've started. At a certain point, you're probably too young, but at a certain point, to get the business out of your estate, you give them the controlling interest. You give them that 51%. Now your 49% is worth less because you don't have control. And in an estate, they usually will give you a 20% discount for lack of control. And after that, they compound it with another 20% for marketability. You need a tax lawyer to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in a third generation business. My dad, he was there through an attorney. He was able to